Yeah, that's why we don't like to voice out our different opinions sometimes, because if we do, then we're not liked because they're afraid that they get rejected. Yeah,
Mm.
they're afraid of these negative responses from the parents. Yeah, so the defensive independence, it's related to when a parent is very rejecting of a kid, then normally you see there's a rise in level of independence. The less creative the child becomes, the more rejecting, the less creative. That makes sense, right? The
Oh,
more okay. You notice my Christmassy
yeah.
background.
I like the Christmas tree.
Thank you. Okay, so okay.
Okay, I did have some things written down from last time on the episode. I will just like go through that.
Yes, yes, yes. That'd be nice.
Okay. Welcome back to episode 7 of What is a Good Mother Project. Today we'll be talking about the commentary on episode 5. Yeah.
Yay.
So my first question is about like the key findings number 1 slide. You talk about the need for a positive response for their important caregivers, like for the child, in key findings 1. What about the other people important to the child but not their immediate caregivers? So like, I
Mhm.
don't know, extended family or teachers, like what would their positive response look like and how important is that to the child?
Hmm. That is a really good question, Jeannie. I appreciate that. That there is a difference between significant others and people in one social world, like our social world, people around us. We meet a lot of different people every day. Yeah. But obviously we have closer engagement with a significant others at home, usually of family members. I would have to say our own like parents. Yeah, and what do you call this one? Like family units. But usually we have yeah, nuclear family. Yeah. So nuclear family includes parents, kids, and that's it. That's it. And siblings, obviously. Siblings. And then, everyone would have extended family members, and then like everyone would have friends. We meet in school or in other social gatherings such as church or community centers or other engagement you might have. And then these other authority figures, around us. These authority figures would include teachers, professionals, like, in psychology, we would say family doctors because, the father of psychology himself was a physician, like Sigmund Freud. Like he was a medical doctor. Yeah, so these are the so-called authority figures. And these authority figures actually can have influences on us like parents can, because from a child's perspective, if a kid is in school, then, they see the teachers like they're like, the caregivers. So I think your question is you want to know, we want to find out if these caregivers, these authority figures around a child, how important it is for them to be positive, right? Yeah, as well.
Yeah, just like not how important is that for them to be positive, but it's not like the immediate like parents or like not the immediate caregiver.
I think it's really important that they are also positive. Yeah, because from our just common sense, from our common knowledge of psychology, we know that every positive experience would add, something good to our life. Yeah, every positive experience. But I want to go back to Rohner's interpersonal acceptance rejection theory because we want to understand his theory, we want to discuss things coming out from his wisdom. He is proposing in his interpersonal acceptance rejection theory that if we experience rejection in our social environment, we can also experience the negative impact of that rejection emotionally. Yeah. So if we answer your question in light of Rohner's interpersonal acceptance rejection theory, I would say that yes, the negative responses that we receive from people around in our social circle, our social environment, do have a negative impact on us emotionally. Yeah, even though they're not significant others. I'll give you an example. Even if you go to, let's say, a fast food store, if the employees aren't treating you with respect, aren't listening to your orders, or aren't treating you with respect, you feel not good. Yeah, although like it's not gonna hurt your feelings a lot, but you just don't feel good because yeah, that's any negative responses, it's a blow to our expectation. Yeah, because everyone expects to be respected and to be served with respect. Yeah, so we expect it to be liked. If I put it in a social psychology perspective, people want to be liked by others. That's why we conform to the social rules. Yeah, that's why we don't like to voice out our different opinions sometimes, because if we do, then we're not liked.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that reminds me of the social animal book that Aronson wrote in social psychology. Yeah, so being liked, it's a fundamental need for any individual, any human being, being liked. Yeah, you don't have to love, but being liked, like, oh, do you like seeing me, giving me a smile? We obviously, this is what we want. A kid would try to do anything to be liked by a parent, to be liked by someone.
So yeah, thanks for talking more about like the importance of other people on the child. Like it's important to have like a pro-social environment, like everyone having positive influences on the child, not just like their parents or like the immediate caregiver. Um, I forget what slide this is on, but like later on, you talk about like defensive independence, and this is about the relationship between acceptance, rejection, and independence, dependence, like that their relationship for parent-child dynamics. Do you want to elaborate more on what is defensive independence and how it comes to be and like some examples?
Yeah, it's interesting that in psychology, we often would put a label onto like a complex behavior. Yeah, we'll just put a label like a one word or a two-word description of a complex behavior. But for this particular term, defensive independence, we have two words here. We have independence. Okay, we have the concept of a child being independent, having, independence, versus dependence. Okay, so we understand what that means. Okay, when a child is embracing independence, they would try to do things on their own. They will have their own thinking, their own mind. They'll, they'll speak their mind. They will maybe get dressed. They will have their own friends. They will maybe go out on their own. I don't know, maybe in Australia, do kids go out on their own? Like, yeah, because like you got really good public transportation.
Not as good as Hong Kong, but it's still like pretty good. Yeah, little kids do go out on their own. Like you see like high school students or like middle school students like out and about.
Yeah. Coming from having lived in North America for a number of years, independence in people in teens living in North America doesn't link to going out on their own because in America if you go to places, there's so many places you need to be driven to. Like, so
Mm.
if a kid, it doesn't have a driver's license yet, even as they have a driver's license at the age of 16, they have to have a car. And then so, most of the time, if they have a car, it's because the parents let them use one of the cars, or seldom you'll see a teenager owning his or her own car. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so because that's a very extravagant thing. Unless you live in the city, but then that's not a norm. Yeah, so independence means differently for people living in different societies. Yeah. Yeah, but you understand what independence means. Dependent, you do understand what that means.
Yeah,
Dependent.
like being
Yeah, so
reliant on someone else to do things, I guess.
exactly. Yeah. Usually understand being independent as a more optimal behavior. Is that right? Yeah, more optimal. Yeah. We would like to see people or a young person being independent, having high confidence on oneself, yeah, to make one's own decisions and to decide what one should do, things like that. Okay,
Mhm.
so now we have this term defensive. Okay, independence, defensive independence. So adding defensive to the term independence, what does that mean? Particularly also in the context of in the child. Yeah. So can you imagine?
Well, to me, it just feels like it's a defensive or like a defense mechanism that the child is independent because of prior rejection. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So they are saying no, no. They're not independent because they have their own thoughts or own thinking per se. That they are defensive. That means they try to be on their own because they don't want to listen to any opinion of their parents because they're afraid that they get rejected. Yeah,
Mm.
they're afraid of these negative responses from the parents. Yeah, so the defensive independence, it's related to when a parent is very rejecting of a kid, that the kid obviously would not expect the parent would give them any support or positive response, right?
Mm.
So they try to stay away. They try to stay away from the parent. That I think that's is what defensive independence is trying to describe. Yeah, they
Mm.
try to stay away. They try to stay away from the parent. Yeah.
So
So
is it
so
just because it is linked to rejection, or does it not have to be dependent on rejection that one might become like defensively independent?
it's related to rejection.
Okay.
Yes. 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 This figure two that Rohner is creating is showing the relationship between um, acceptance, rejection, and dependence, independence. Yeah, so um, but very interesting about this curve is that when a kid has the on the other hand on the y-axis on the lower x-axis near the area of the acceptance, high acceptance, the more dependence, there's a dotted line that points to immature dependence. This part of the graph is describing a situation when a child receives a lot of acceptance, a lot of love and praises from a parent, and the child sometimes can get immaturely dependent because, he or she is addicted to the love bombing, the love and phrases that the parent is, giving, is projecting on the child. Yeah, so the child is very is more dependent, has like a little spike of dependence.
Mhm.
But normally you see there's a rise in level of independence from very accepting parents who, the middle, that means the parents sometimes accept, sometimes reject. That's the peak. Yeah. So it rises from, let's say, the more rejection received, the more dependence.
Mhm.
Yeah. So why is that? I think that is another point of, discussion. Why is that?
Mm.
What do you think of that? So
Well,
yeah,
I
so
think
for the middle.
yeah, I feel like it increases until a certain point because then the child is more because you still accept the child for some aspects. It's not like complete rejection yet. The child becomes very sensitive to those oh, in what conditions or under what circumstances will the parents or the immediate caregiver accept the child. So then it becomes more, I don't know if this is the right word, but reliant on the external validation of the parents because it's so subjective to change. They are so sensitive to that, so then they are more dependent on the parents' reactions, I guess.
That's absolutely right. Yes, you're spot on. That's absolutely right. That, when a parent is not totally accepting, but sometimes accept, sometimes reject. Yeah, the child is trying to figure out what's wrong with me. Yeah,
Mm,
probably I wasn't doing the right thing, and why my parents not praising me as much anymore, and so they'll they'll look into your the parents' face and to figure it out. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's for interestingly, the opposite is when a child is living, it's growing up with a lot of love and praises, affection. They're actually likely to be um independent, has medium level of independence. So they're not they would be more independent than those who receive half acceptance,
Yeah.
half rejection. So those who
Mm,
receive love 100% of the time,
mm,
little criticism, love indulgence with parental love, they're more independent.
mm,
Yes, they're more independent than those who receive half acceptance, half rejection. And then the plummet. If the more rejection the parents gives and the fewer acceptance, fewer praises, that usually happens when the kid becomes a teenager.
mm,
Yeah, the the more independent the child is. Okay. And then if the rejection keeps going on, accumulating, then it you that it goes to the defensive independence. No, nothing. No, you can't say anything to me, and no effect. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think The last thing I have in my notes is just like, I think at one point that you wanted to talk about like a critique, but like we didn't have enough time to talk about our critique in
Mm.
episode 5. So like let's discuss what we think about Rohner's acceptance rejection personality subtheory.
Mhm. Yeah. One of the questions that we raised on a known slide is, about the effect of mixed parenting style. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think Ronner's conceptual paper did not address that. Well, there are two ways of going about figuring this out. One way is to search for more of the empirical studies or other theoretical papers that Ronner might have published to see if he did address the effect of mixed parenting style. Another way is to conceptualize mixed parenting style or conduct our own research. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I think this mixed style is a very interesting thing. Although I think for mixed parenting style, it's also harder to measure
Of
too.
course.
Yeah, the mixed style would be the situation where parents is accepting the child half of the time and rejecting the child half of the time.
Or like
Um,
I think it'd be hard to see like conceptualize what that would actually look like. Or is it like dependent on certain context? Like maybe the parent is more likely to reject the child in like these contexts in these circumstances than others. I feel like that'd be hard to, I don't know, observe or like find out or like measure.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, although like usually the questionnaires, the items are phrased in a very contextless situation so that it applies in all sorts of contexts. Yeah.
Yeah.
But my hypothesis is that, the more rejection, the more negative the impact on the child. Yeah, this is what I would predict. Although, like Bronner did not say this. Yeah,
Mhm.
this did not say that the more negative, more rejection the parent gives to the child, the more severe the maladjustment the child is experiencing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, because the theoretical paper that we reviewed isn't presenting any like correlational studies. Like
Yeah. Mhm.
You know, that's why that's why we have this survey. Judge wanted
Mhm.
to advertise us on our survey. I would like to obtain some data, empirical data, on measuring this kind of a thing from an adult child's perspective. Also on our What is a Good Mother Project survey, we don't measure outcome variables. We
Yeah.
not not in that sense. Yeah, we only measure one's experience of his own parents thinking back when they were a teenager, and then that's it. Maybe like you can describe how you think your mother. By the way, it's about just one's mother, not mother and father. On that point, that also may be linked to another question. I mean, that is there any difference between mother's acceptance and father's acceptance? Although,
Yeah.
like, Rhonda did raise about the gender difference. Yeah,
Mm.
he did. Gender
And I also
difference.
remember he said something about like if you have one loving or accepting parent, like that reduces the impact of the like rejecting parent or like that
Exactly. Yes,
minimizes
yes.
the harmful effects of the rejecting parent. Yeah. So maybe in that way it could also be mixed in the sense that like different parents have different levels of acceptance and rejection, not just like the
Yes.
individual as well.
That's that's exactly. Yes.
What about the second point on vocational interest, personality, and career development?
But my initial reaction or like my initial conception of the relationship between parental acceptance, rejection, and vocational personality development is that, the more rejecting a parent is,
Mhm.
the less creative the child becomes. The more rejecting, the less creative. That makes sense, right? The more
Oh.
accepting, the more creative the child is. Yeah. So the creativity is a very important characteristics of one's career decision or one's
Mhm.
career interest areas.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right?
Why
Because
do
like certain people who are not creative at all, they can only do a certain kind of works, like those conventional kind of works and
you?
maybe the realistic kind of jobs, realistic conventional kind of jobs, according to the categories of John Holland's vocational interests typology. Yeah. But for creative people, they tend to do obviously artistic kind of the jobs, artistic, investigative things, and more social because if if your parents accept you, for example, if you're a child, like parents accept you, you feel good about yourself, then you tend to be more sociable.
Mhm.
Your parents engages you when you're a child, and so this personality is shaped by the parents' acceptance and rejection. Yeah, um, definitely. When we think about the application. Although we're like we in our presentation we talks about words and theories and cut and dry theories and these models and things like that, definitions, but this actually has really vivid real life application. Like you
Yeah.
think of a child, being loved by not let's just say being loved by the mother.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's just try to ignore the father's effect. Okay, just by the mother. The mother, usually the primary caretaker, right?
Mhm.
It's very loved and nurtured by by the mother of the child. Tends to be very sociable. Tends to be less scared of social situations.
Mm.
Yeah, because it tends to be able to make friends in school. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I had today.
I think that's good. I think we got a lot of stuff and we definitely we definitely can have like a 20 minute commentary. Yeah, I don't think we don't need to make it too long. I think 20 minutes is good. It's good. Yeah, thank you so much. I think you did a great job. These are very thoughtful questions.
Of course.